Hi kids, welcome to part 3. We're going to get going on the amplifier so that we can get this thing finished up. We don't have very far to go, really. I need to replace the capacitors in the amplifier. The paper capacitors, I will replace the 3 paper capacitors, but the resistors I'm going to leave alone because I tested them and they're all within tolerance. The big problem I'm going to have is with the electrolytics. The electrolytics are in this aluminum can with this black cardboard cover over it. And I can disconnect those and I can use the original negative connections, but I need to find a better way to connect the new capacitors to the wires to get them where they're going, you know. The capacitor is going to be this size. I put a 47 and a 33 together to make my 80 microfarad capacitor. That needs to go in there. This is a 22 to replace the 20 microfarad capacitor in that can. And then I have a couple of little 22s that are only 25 volts, and one of those will go in here too. Problem is I don't have a lot of space. You look here, this is the cover for the amplifier. It goes on there like that, and just a couple of screws hold it in place. So I don't have a lot of space under here for this kind of stuff, and I don't have a good place to mount a terminal strip. You know, I can put a terminal strip in here maybe if I connect it to one of these negative lugs. I might be able to do that, and then I can maybe have just enough room to get these in here, you know, on one side and maybe this one on the other. And then of course the third capacitor is really small, so that might not be a problem. I might be able to swing something like that. Then I'll just have to see if I'm going to be able to get that cover back on there. You know, that might be a little tight, but we'll see. Because I can't, you know, I'm just looking at that, and if I do something like that, I can't have this getting in the way of that screw hole, or I won't be able to put the cover back on. So anyway, that's what we're going to have to figure out, or I'm going to have to figure out. I always say we, I don't know why. And then the other thing is I'm going to have to get the tone arm sorted out and get my cartridge in there. I took the old cartridge out. Talked about that already. And it was originally, it had a 1 ounce tracking force, which is ridiculously heavy. I mean, even for 78s, that's just stupid. You can see the tone arm is kind of floating above things a little bit now because I shortened the spring up a little bit, and it raised up the tone arm a little bit, lightened up that tracking force a little bit. I need to measure it. I need to find a way to measure it. I haven't found a good way to do that yet. My little kitchen scale, I think, is too big to sit on here and get a good, you know. And I have a tracking force gauge, but it's a modern one, and it doesn't measure anything this heavy. We're going to need to get the tracking force down to about 8 grams to make that new cartridge happy. So I'm working on that. So that's, you know, if I can get the amp redone and get this sorted out, get the cartridge in there and get the tracking force sorted out, this thing's pretty much done. We're just going to have to do a couple of cosmetic things to it. I'd like to get this pink crud off of here that I talked about earlier. I have a spot right here that I tried a couple of different things to get the pink off of it, and I used denatured alcohol, which did minimize the pink. You can still barely see it, but it also took this brown textured look off. So I need to be careful with that. But anyway, I don't know what that is, but it's got this pink stuff here and there. Anyway, that's where we're at. Just want to get you started on part 3, and I'm going to get going on this stuff, and we're going to get this thing done because I'm kind of anxious to try it out. And I got a couple of other things I'm going to fool around with as we're working on this. I'm going to try to put a second one of these little electrolytics under there and do that output boost that I mentioned earlier. And you know, I even have this goofy little solid state preamp that I might, you know, stick in there just to see if it would make a difference, although I really doubt it. I don't think, you know, I tried this once before in a different record player, and it did boost the output, but it really just caused a lot of hum. So, you know, we'll fool around with that and see, but I'm probably not going to bother with that. It's probably a waste of time. Anyway, that's where we are, getting started on this, and stay tuned. I've got the 3 paper capacitors replaced. Did that last night. And I've decided to go ahead and restuff the electrolytic can. It's just going to be the best thing to do, just to save space. So I've made a diagram and I've taken a couple of pictures, keeping track of where my wires are. And I'm going to go ahead and disconnect all the wires. And I think if you look at these, just to focus, if you look at the negative tabs on here, what they do is they put the can in place, they put it through this socket, this wafer, and then they twist them to hold it in place. You can see that. So if I disconnect all the wires and I just twist these negative leads back the other way, I should be able to pull the can out of there. And then I can cut it open and get the guts out of it and rebuild it and put my new capacitors inside of it and just put it right back in place. It's just going to be the best solution, just to save space. I don't want to try to stuff a bunch of caps up under here. There just isn't room for them. So that's where we're at. Stand by for more. I've got the wires disconnected and I went ahead and labeled them. I didn't have to because I took pictures and I drew a diagram, but it might make it easier just to have them labeled. Anyway, that's that step. So now I'm going to try to get that electrolytic can off the chassis, and then we'll see about cracking it open. Well, it's out. One of the problems I had was the negative tabs. Here's one. You can see these little wings on them, and when you twist these, you twist them, you know, they stick up through these slots, and when you twist them, those little wings kind of spread out and hold it in place, and it's really hard to get all of this to flatten back out, to pull this back through the back out of this wafer. So two of them I just pried off. I just broke them. It's fine. I've got one good one to make all my negative connections, and if I want to, I can add something. You know, it's not that big a deal. The negative just goes to the metal can. It doesn't go to the chassis itself. So we'll figure that out. And then you have, if I get this in the light a little better, sorry. You can see that triangle there. And then this one has a square behind it. That's how you know which one's which. If you look at the cardboard cover, it says 80 microfarad, 150 volt. That's the square one. 20 at 150 volt is the triangle one, and then the 20 at 25, it just has a dash there. That's the other one, you know. So that's what those shapes are for on these old electrolytic cans. So anyway, I'm going to crack this open. I'll either pry the end of it up, but I probably will just cut it open with a Dremel or a hacksaw and replace the guts. This was some glue to hold the cardboard cover on, I guess. Nasty looking stuff. Anyway, I'll crack it open. I'll replace the guts with some new electrolytics, and then I usually just tape these back together with that aluminum duct tape. I'm going to have to go to the home improvement store and get some of that. I'm out. But anyway, that's what holds it. I just use that to hold these back together. And then we'll put the cardboard cover back on, and it'll look fine. It'll never look, you know. And like I said, I'll do what I can to replace these broken negative terminals, but I'm not that worried about it. I just take pieces of terminal strip. I've got some brand new ones I stocked up when Radio Shack was going out of business. And I'll just replace all of these connections with those, and we'll just get put back together, and then we should be in business. Like I said, I replaced the other capacitors, and I just gave it a quick test last night, and the amp works, but it hums a lot. That should go away once we get this done. So stay tuned. I just finished cutting through this with a hacksaw. Let's take a look at it and see what we got. Okay. That's what they look like inside. Just probably, you know, just wax paper and tin foil with the, you know, originally had the electrolytic solution in there, which it still looks like it's a tiny bit damp in there, but pretty much shot. So we're gonna try and get this apart. You can see when they do that, it's wiggling the contacts. We're gonna try and get this apart, and there we go. Just break all of those, and pretty much what I'm gonna do. That's what I thought. See, those negative connectors are just You know, I think these are aluminum, you know. I think they just, so you have to find a different way to get these contacts there that you can solder to. I'm not sure exactly how they did that. I think just this inner ring, is probably steel or some other metal that solder will stick to. I don't know exactly what. But the rest of the housing is aluminum. And then you can see on the inside, it's just, you know. So we'll get the old tabs out of there, and we'll put new ones in from terminal strips. I'll get that wafer out of there, and we'll get that all cleaned up and rebuilt. And I'll try to do something with this ring to replace the negative connections that I broke, because we're going to have to put this back in and twist those to get it to hold to the chassis the way it did originally. And then once we get all the new caps, and I've been kind of fooling around, I have a bunch of test leads and stuff here because I was testing it last night just to see how it would do with the new caps, and it does pretty well. The amplifier works pretty well. I'm still working on a couple of things to see if we can boost the output a little bit. But anyway, we're going to have to, you know, those are just going to fit in there. And then we're going to have to get this one and this little one in there too. So we're going to have to figure that out. It's going to be awfully tight, but, you know, it's long enough, I think, where we can do that. I can put these in first and then put this one in after it. And that'll probably be fine. So I'm going to start working on that, and I'll update you as we go. And then, like I said, once it's all done, I'll just put some aluminum tape on it, and it'll hold it really well. And then we'll just put the cardboard cover back on it, and it'll look fine, you know. So stand by for that. Okay, let's get back to it here. You can see I moved the TV. You can see it over there. I'm just trying to make a little bit more room here. I'm far from organized, but I'm working on it. Getting back to the electrolytic capacitor that I'm rebuilding, one of the things that I did when Radio Shack closed all of its stores here locally is I stocked up on these terminal strips. I like these because they have the ground lug right in the middle and then two on either side. So you can either use this whole thing, or if you want to make it shorter, you can break off one or two or however many, you know, and get it down to one or two plus the negative, plus the ground, I should say, you know. And it works pretty well. So what I did was I took these apart, I broke them up, you know, and got the lugs off of them, and I put three of them in here. Let me see if I can get this to focus a little better. Hang on. Okay, so you can see I've got those three in there. That's what I'm going to attach the positive sides of my electrolytics to. And then on the other side, I took three of those ground lugs and I cut them down and soldered them to the old ground lugs, and made them shorter, left the hole there. That hole is where they were originally mounted to the phenolic material, you know, that's what that is. And I cut this one like this for a reason, and we'll get to that here in a bit. There's a reason why this one is cut like that and the other two aren't. But anyway, that is ready to go. The part sticking out the top for the positives are pretty short, but it's enough. There's a place to run the wire through and solder to it. So we're going to do that. We're going to get these electrolytics put in the can as best we can. It's going to be a tight fit on this one. I mean, it really is, but we can get it in there. You know, it's going to be a tight fit. And then I just have to figure out if I'm going to be able to get this one in there too. The little one shouldn't be a problem, you know. If I want to, I can dispense with this, which is an 80 that I made by putting two together, and I can put a 100 in there that, you know, might take up a little less space. I might end up doing that. It doesn't hurt to go a little higher on these things. It might even hum less when it's all said and done, you know. But that still takes up quite a bit of room in there, you know. We'll have to see. I can probably do it if I put the negatives together, and then, yeah, I can probably do it. I might end up doing that. I might put that 100 in there if I don't have enough space for these two. You know, it would have to go like that. A little bundle of dynamite, and you know, it's close. I'll have to see. I don't know. It's going to be real tight. But anyway, that's what that is. And one of the things I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to drill a small hole in this and attach the negative leads of all three electrolytics to one of these ground lugs. Going to have to do that so that when I hook everything up, it's going to be grounded. Like I said, the idea here is that it's grounded, or the negative goes to the can, not to the chassis. So I'm going to have to, just drill a small hole and run that lead up through there and connect it to one of these, and then everything should be fine. And I've already test fitted this. It goes up into the chassis really nice. And I might try to notch them a little bit with a Dremel or something so that when I twist them, they'll twist and hold this in place. That was the main. That's why I put these back on here the way I did. They have to hold this in place. I don't want it falling out of there. So that's where we're at on that, and that's what I'm working on now. And we'll be getting onto that here pretty soon. Oh, let me show you this real quick. This was kind of cool. This cigarette lighter looking thing. It's actually a very small jeweler's scale, a digital scale. So I can measure the tracking force on my record players. It goes up to 200 grams, which is more than I need. But it will measure older record players' tracking force. The other one that I have only goes to like 1.5 grams or something like that, because it's for modern turntables. I tried this on one of my little RCA 45 players and found out that it's about not quite 4.4 grams, so that was good to know. And anyway, it comes in this funny little, cigarette lighter looking thing. So anyway, now once we get it all put together, I'll be able to get that tone arm lightened up to about, I want to go, it's got to be 8 grams or less. 8 is the absolute heaviest. It should be okay if I have to do that, but I'd like to get it a little less if I can. But anyway, that's just letting you know where we're at. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show you, hang on, let me stop this real quick.